I used to be really into hackathons. There was just something about the process of going from nothing to something in 48 hours, where that something is a tech project that you built with your friends. And beyond that, it's just this culture at hackathons that I fell in love with. You've got these energetic, nerdy people who are just working hard and having fun together. And I think that's the core of it for me. It's something that I believe in life in general, that when you combine working hard with having fun, amazing things happen. And I have a story that illustrates that for you. So just after I turned 16 in the fall of 2015, I joined a hackathon with a few of my buddies that was organized by my city. And the idea was to use civil data generated and maintained by the city, to build some product over the course of the weekend. So we immediately started to go through the data, and what we found was a lot of infrastructure stuff, a lot of mapping stuff, parking, etc. There was nothing really fun. Until we stumbled across one data set. There was only one that we found that really stood out. It was interesting. It was a data set of trees. So pretty much every city-owned tree, the trees that they maintain, there were tens of thousands of them, they had data points on them. So they had their latitude and their longitude, their precise locations, as well as things like the species and the age of the tree, and so on. And for some reason, the notion of there being a digital record of tens of thousands of trees owned by the city just seemed so cool to us. Like we just wanted to build something with it, okay? We just wanted to have some fun with it. So as I remember it, our initial idea was about getting people to go outside. It was like augmented reality. We would put these trees on a map and people could wander around on the map and they could find those trees and learn about them. And then we had this idea to do what's called a treetop, if you will, a play on words with meetup. Obviously, I was very proud of that pun. But the idea was that you could just share a link to a tree and you could organize a meetup there. You could invite friends on a private or a public basis, and they would get directions for how to get through the tree. But really, we just wanted to have some fun. Like, we were just like playing with puns. We decided that we wanted to name our app Timber, because it's like Tinder for trees, even though it's nothing like Tinder at all. But we named it Timber because it just, it was fun play on words. I think we just thought it'd be hilarious because, like, it's just such a weird concept if somebody sent you a link to an app that was called Timber, and they're like, hey, let's meet up at this tree. It's just such a ludicrous, out there idea. We were 16, we thought it was really funny. So we built this. It was essentially a one-screen app. You were on a map, like I said, you're a blue dot, there are green dots representing the trees near you, and you could walk around and the map would update, and you could click on them and you could see information about the trees, and you could send links for tree depths. It was actually kind of a technically complicated project. It wasn't crazy, of course. So for example, one of the things we had to do is we had to geohash our data set. So this is essentially a process which, because you can't render all 10,000 or 20 or whatever, however many trees there were at once on the screen, and it would just be inefficient to do so because you're only going to have, maybe 10 trees in your radius anyways. We had to figure out a way to figure out which trees in the data set were nearest to you. And this can be done pretty efficiently using a process called geohashing, which is just kind of interesting. We were learning a lot with this. We, built a responsive web app where you got your GPS data from your phone and we updated a map in real time. And then we had a real-time database that would have information about these trees, and we could update that. And you could, at one point, upvote and downvote trees, kind of like Reddit style. We're just building fun features. And it took us pretty much to the end of the hackathon to get this working and to get this done. I think we had maybe 3 or 4 hours left when we kind of finished our product. But as we finished it, we realized a couple of things. So one, nobody would actually use this, right? The intention was to get people to go outside, but in reality it was mostly just a joke. And it was a technically impressive joke, but it was just a joke at the end of the day, and it wasn't going to succeed in the hackathon. And so with 3 or 4 hours left, we thought, well, how do we make this succeed in the hackathon, right? Right now, what we have is we have a platform essentially for drug deals, anonymous, meet me at this tree at this time, right? We didn't want to put that in a civic hackathon. We wanted to have some feature that would make it actually useful to the city. And what we realized was, well, when are people actually thinking about city-owned trees, right? They're not usually thinking about them in oh, it's so beautiful, I want to meet a friend there sense. They're usually thinking about it in the opposite sense. which is that tree is damaged or that tree is diseased. Somebody needs to take care of that. And how do you communicate that, right? Well, you could send like an email to the city. You could call the city and say, I'm on the corner of West and 7th and there's a tree here. And that might work, but it's kind of inefficient. When we have this database already, this data set of trees, their exact locations, information that might be, prudent, like the type of tree and the age of the tree and so on. And what we could do is, from our platform that we built, which is this AR map that you're walking around on, you can find trees, you can simply report it with one click. Isn't that so much better? And so we built that. It was really quick. It just sent an email, a button that sent an email to the city, and we built our pitch around that. And this pitch was just full of puns. It was full of, we called our app Timber, of course, like treed ups. We had so many bad tree puns. It was awesome. The audience loved it. The judges loved it. But then we got serious and we said, this actually solves a problem. And the problem is that reporting diseased or damaged trees right now is an inefficient process, or more inefficient than it needs to be. And while this isn't a huge problem, of course, turning the narrative into that made the judges like it a little bit more. And it turned out actually that the judges liked it so much that they gave us first place. We won the hackathon. And there was a grand prize of $1,500. We talked to the city at one point about moving forward with this, but it just didn't seem like that useful, that big of a project. It was just a cool project. It was a fun weekend project. But it did turn into something more, because I used that project in job interviews. It was a perfect project to talk about in coding job interviews. And in fact, it was the project that I talked about in my last technical interview at Shopify, where I was working that summer as a software developer intern. So this kind of weird weekend project actually ended up getting leveraged into a huge opportunity for me. And then I used the same data set from that project in a science fair project that spring, where I ended up winning silver medal at Canadian Nationals. So essentially this one silly weekend project ended up being really impactful in my career, both professionally and academically. I think this tells me something interesting about taking myself too seriously, right? I could have, my team, it wasn't just me, of course, we could have just gone in there and looked at the data and said, well, this is a civic hackathon, there's a lot of mapping data, let's make a mapping application so people can find, zoning permits or whatever, I don't know. We could have done that. That's what everyone else did, essentially. But instead, we said, let's have some fun, right? Let's make a fun project. And because we were technically proficient and we worked really hard on it and we built a really solid platform, we were then able to say, well, how do we make this more impactful, right? And starting with this idea of originality and then transitioning to impact made us stand out from the other people who kind of started from this let's just build a very serious product. Let's do a very serious project. And I'm not saying that one is always going to be better than the other, of course. But I think sometimes I'm inclined to believe that if I take myself, not seriously enough, then I won't ever do anything serious, right? It's a kind of weird notion to think that you can come from a position of having fun and telling jokes and actually do something which would be really influential and impactful for yourself. I'd now like to thank Audible for sponsoring this video. And I've worked with Audible for a long time, and I use the product every day in my day-to-day activities, whether I'm walking around, cleaning up around my apartment, or if I'm just, sitting around and I want to listen to a piece of audio content. Audible is my go-to. And the book I want to recommend to you this month is The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. And I think this is a very important book right now as we have dialogues about racial injustice, particularly in America, and with the justice system and how the prison industrial complex has contributed to systemic inequality. I think it's a really valuable listen for everyone who's trying to educate themselves about this issue. So if you want to listen to The New Jim Crow or any audiobook in Audible's massive collection for free, then what we'll recommend you do is go to audible.com/johnfish or text code johnfish to 500. This is going to get you a 30-day free trial with one free audiobook from their massive library and unlimited Audible original pieces of content. So that's if you go to audible.com/johnfish or you text code johnfish to 500. So hopefully you got something out of that little anecdotal story. Hopefully it makes you think a little bit about, how seriously you're taking yourself. because I know I take myself too seriously a lot of the time. And I know that great things happen when I stop taking myself so seriously. So again, thank you so much for watching the video. Feel free to like, dislike, feel free to subscribe, feel free to comment, whatever you want to do. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm John Fish. I'll see you again soon.